Alright, so just to give you a bit of context where I'm coming from this, I'm not really a huge fan of Baz Luhrmann. Like, I appreciate his ambition, I appreciate his style, but most of his films just aren't for me. I get why they have their fans, but most of his films just never connected with me. This one is fantastic. All the things that Luhrmann is normally known for, such as quick edits and putting style over substance, those are given a back seat, and it strongly works in the film's favor. This is made in a more traditional way, and there was definitely a lot of passion and research put into this movie. Austin Butler is fantastic as Elvis. I haven't seen him in anything else. This is the only thing I've seen him in, but he is amazing. He looks and sounds just like him. Everything from the vocal inflections when he speaks, even down to Elvis's dance moves, are all perfectly replicated. He absolutely disappears into this performance. And the film also captures the decade really well. Like, it really transports you back in time. And what's interesting is that by doing this, it also kind of provides a commentary on freedom of the artist's expression versus protecting decency. Like, for example, a big part of the first half of the film focuses on how Elvis dancing by shaking his hips was considered very scandalous at the time, and how a lot of parental groups advocated for having him arrested and censored for the sake of protecting the youth, because they didn't like how all of his girl fans were screaming over it, and they thought that it was corrupting the youth. And now, that's pretty tame compared to today's standards, and to the point where Elvis is kind of arrested for what he did, for crimes of indecency. Now, an artist being arrested in this country simply for performing, and the way they perform, is almost unthinkable today, because in some ways we've kind of moved past that, but in some ways we also still have that debate over freedom of expression of the artist versus decency. You know, and most of Baz Luhrmann's films take a time period, but also incorporate the music of today, like with Great Gatsby. That takes place in the 20s, but the whole soundtrack is done by Jay-Z. Moulin Rouge, that takes place in, you know, the 40s or 50s or something, and it's all jukebox musicals of songs that were popular around the time that that came out. And he also does that here, because in between songs, there's covers and new spins of Elvis songs, but they're done by artists like Eminem and Doja Cat, and those are both artists who are controversial today for a lot of the same reasons that Elvis was controversial back then. Now, I don't know if this was intentional commentary on Luhrmann's part, or if he simply wanted to provide a little bit of today's sound in the movie. Probably a bit of both. I just kind of found that aspect interesting. And even though this is a biopic that, yes, for the most part, does sort of glamorize Elvis, it also doesn't shy away from showing the darker side of show business, especially near the end of his life. Now, what's so frustrating about this movie, it was so close to being a 10 out of 10, but what brings it down a bit for me is Tom Hanks. His performance is just really awkward. Like, he's done worse.
Kid, why can't I remember?
But he's certainly not giving us all in this film. His performance in this movie is just odd. But Elvis is still an absolutely fantastic, fascinating, well-acted, well-directed film that's definitely going to be a showstopper. I would give Elvis an A-, a 9 out of 10, and a 4 out of 5 stars.